Well, good. Okay. And we're glad to have you all here. And this way you'll be able to see yourself after the fact. You know, and you never know, you might go, hey, that was pretty cool. I should do some more of this stuff. We won't worry about any other options. Anyway, Jerry, we want you
Yeah.
to start tonight. How's that?
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's called the goalie. And it's a place in my personal, excuse me, a place in my personal life. I start over again. It's a place in my previous life in East Wenatchee I know all too well, a cavernous gully that for some mysterious reason happened to be on top of a hilltop. I don't to this day know what geologic forces a role in its development, but suffice to say was a magical, adventurous place for a young boy and his dog to explore. From the moment I happened to discover this place was where Prince and I, later Heidi, the Dachshund, and Savvy, her son, walked the entire length of the miniature canyon. It was what made the drudgery of walking the dogs so much more exciting and adventurous. It wasn't a short walk either. By the time I came home on weekends, though I did walk after school on occasion, a good portion of the day was gone. This wasn't really a time of instance after all. It was the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s, with its own complexities that was a stark reminder that simple type are more in the eyes of the beholder than truth or fact. Vietnam and as a counterpoint to the anti-war rallies, the hippie, free love, drugs, and rock and roll movements, not to mention the black movement that culminated in race riots and calls for equality sounded out across the television airwaves each night with Walter Cronkite. I like to believe that out there was just it, and I was in absolute freedom away from all the complexities of adult life in general. I didn't have to worry about my job, making ends meet, and keeping a roof over my head. Instead, I had the adventure of taking Prince, Heidi, and Sammy down the gully, where I pretended to explore strange new wonders. One time, I took my friends for a meth out there. They didn't see the fun of the adventure, especially Dora, the great sister, who thought we were most certainly lost. They took off on their own back to the house, which comes to find out later, they had no idea where my house was. Ross, the younger brother of the two, and I came home, and the parents all asked the same question that we asked: where's Greg and Dory? Dad, Pete, and I found them a couple of blocks in the full neighborhood away, knocking on doors and asking complete strangers if they knew where the Shellhammers lived. They've probably forgotten that Thanksgiving Day over 50 years ago, but it's still fresh on my mind. There are more vegetables to fall, more ancient lessons learned as I continue along the deep thought body. It was a place that allowed me opportunities to take, which I wasn't really allowed to do with my parents, my teachers, or my friends. Thinking requires creativity and imagination, which I discovered early on must I do for the most part. I can only think only within the confines of conformity and conservatism. It was in this way that I became more in tune with nature long before I was exposed to Thoreau Emerson. I was a romantic in the strictest sense, but I told everyone about that. But I never told anyone about that, praying that they would forbid me from ever venturing down there again. That or
You have much more to go, Jerry? Because
no, this is it. There are many lessons one learns from just to walking, taking a walk on a road less traveled, or down a winding trail that leads into a gulch that no one pays much attention to. I didn't learn about myself from reading a book. I learned about myself walking my dogs with my friends and my sister away from the concerns out there that we cannot control. Now I'm done.
okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that an article that you put or part of a memoir?
Yes. An article, a blog post I did a while back.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you're going to probably, you're going to be able to participate in our blog for writers thing in January.
I think so.
That'd be cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well, let me see. Anybody got any comments, questions? Cindy, you're muted. You're muted.
Yes, got it. Jerry, was this about when you were young, walking your dog back in the 60s?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that when you described some of those things, I'm like, I remember that. I remember that. We were, I remember doing stuff like that. And
Yeah.
oh yeah, the tumultuous times that we lived in back then.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I lived in Washington, DC, and it was crazy growing up there
Mhm.
back then.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. How about you, Joyce? Are you up and ready?
Yep.
Okie dokie.
Okay. You see this. This is my book.
Yeah.
It's I Know Your Secrets, Dad. It's a fictional memoir. And this is one of the things my dad thought would be absolutely funny. It says 2 days later, Heather stepped out of the house to go see Ryan when her dad's car pulled up. She didn't want to be alone with him and turned to go back inside the house. He rolled down the window and called Heather. The sound of his voice immobilized her. She pulled down so hard on the purse straps, her fingers and shoulder went numb. Heather, get in the car. I want to take you to look at some property for a horse arena. I'm meeting Ryan before we leave next week on our trip. Who's Ryan? My boyfriend, she exclaimed in a disgusted tone. The guy who's 5'11" with wavy red hair and green eyes. Oh, him. This is more important than seeing some boy. I don't know anything about land. You don't need me. Get in the car now. You can't force me to go with you. As long as you're living under my roof, you'll do as I say. He leaned over and pushed the passenger side door open. Disgusted, she clung to her purse and sat in the car. For 38 minutes, he drove past subdivisions and shopping malls. Neither spoke to each other until the car stopped out in the middle of nowhere. Heather pushed the door open and stood on the barren piece of land. She jumped when he slammed his door. I'm going to put a public horse arena to the right, stables for boarding and a bunkhouse for the stable boy on the left side of the property. Walk around and get the lay of the land. What does that mean, get the lay of the land? There's not even a tree here. They walked to the middle of the property and Clark glanced at his watch. I have to make a phone call about buying another stallion. Stay here. Don't leave me out here. There is nothing for me to do. Take me with you. You'll do as I say. The drugstore we passed a mile back will have a payphone, Clark told her. You can entertain yourself for 10 or 15 minutes, can't you, Heather? He strolled over to his car and drove away. He has my purse. I bet he goes through the wallet and takes out the money. She balled her fingers into fists. With nothing else to do, Heather plopped her butt down and sat cross-legged on the dirt. A dust devil swirled in the breeze and she closed her mouth and eyes until the breeze quit. Every minute felt like an eternity waiting for her dad to return. 13 minutes later, a car slowed down and Heather saw a police emblem on the side. Why would the police be out here? Something bit her. She looked down and saw red ants crawling all over her leg. Man, they bite, and brushed them off and moseyed over to the cops who were coming toward her. Hi, officers. The older of the two men said, a call came in about a trespasser on this property. What's your name, young lady? Heather Ridgway. How old are you? 17. I don't see a car or a bike. How did you get here? The young officer asked in a snotty tone. My father dropped me off. He had to make a phone call at the drugstore. Dad owns this property and he wanted to show it to me. He should be back soon. Heather glanced at her watch. Who called in this trumped up charge anyway? The older policeman took a notepad out of his shirt pocket, but before the officer could speak, Heather said, here comes my father. He strolled up with a smile on his face. Officers, can I help you? The older man asked, what is your name, sir? Clark Ridgway. Has my daughter done something wrong? The officer looked at the piece of paper and stood there in disbelief. How could you call us out here on your own daughter? From what she says, you left her here to go make a phone call. Heather said, let me see your notepad. Her mouth fell open when she saw her father's name on the complaint. She stared at him. Mr. Ridgway, did you know making a false police report is against the law? Let me tell you what's going on here, officers, Clark said, and the three of them walked back to the police car. This is what Dad thought was funny. Getting Anything he could do to get me into trouble, that's what he did.
Wow. That's a nice excerpt. That's
Pardon me?
that's the nice excerpt from your book.
Thank you.
You worked on that for years, I think.
Yes.
Okay, any comments, questions for anyone? Okay, well, now let's see. Fred Jessup, you're the next one on the list, and I've got you mute. There you are. Thank you, sir. You ready?
Yes, this is from this novel which I just finished. It's a sequel to the first novel, Drummer Loves Dancer, but it's complete in itself. You don't have to read the first one. And I didn't think I wrote historical fiction, but since these books take place starting in the 1950s, some people have told me that is historical fiction. But that was in my lifetime. How can that be historical? Okay, this is a letter that this young woman in the first book, this young lad, fell in love with this dancer named Ginger from New York. At the end of the summer, she went back to New York, and they're still in love, but she feels like she needs to go to Paris to find about her family, which she never knew anything about. So here it goes. This is a letter she's written to Lad. Dear Lad, now I am absolutely positive that coming to Paris was the right thing to do. I learned the most amazing things today. I made an appointment with the rabbi at my grandparents' synagogue. I told him who I am, who my mother is, and most importantly, who my grandparents were. He was stunned. He couldn't speak for a moment, and then he teared up. He knew my grandparents and had never dreamed he might meet any of their descendants. The rabbi's father had been a cantor of that synagogue. He showed me pictures of the whole congregation in the 1930s, and he pointed out my grandparents. I actually saw what they looked like. That's when I got teary. He told me my grandparents did not die back in the 1920s, which is what my mother had said. They were killed in the Holocaust. I could not hold back my tears then. My mother had had no contact with them after she left for America. Apparently, my mother had a big fight with her parents and never wanted to hear from them again. The rabbi told me his father, the cantor, had decided not to leave when the Germans captured Paris, but to stay with the congregation. He thought the Germans would crack down on them, so he wanted his son, that is my rabbi, who was studying then, to leave. The cantor knew that the Iranian ambassador in Paris was writing exit visas for any Jews with Iranian connections. Since the cantor's family had come from Iran 100 years before, the cantor got the ambassador to issue papers necessary to get the cantor's son out of the country. The cantor stayed in Paris, and so he was also murdered in the Holocaust. The ambassador who helped his son escape was a Muslim. Isn't that amazing? An Iranian Muslim saving French Jews from the German Nazis. The cantor's son stayed in Iran until the British and Russians invaded Iran in 1941. Then he was able to get to England where he could continue his studies to become a rabbi. I hope you'll be happy with the next news. I have decided to actually become a real Jew. I'm studying so that I can have a bat mitzvah here in Paris, in my grandparents' synagogue. I had a long talk with Rabbi Seraph. I told him I wasn't sure I believed in God, but I knew this was something or someone beyond this life because of what I experienced after that auto accident. He said that was fine. I should do what Jews do and become part of the community. He said, become a practicing Jew first, and then in time, believing would come along. I thought that sounded sensible. It's a Reformed synagogue, so I don't have to follow all the rules about what to eat and so on. I know I'm doing it partly because my grandparents' lives were cut short by Hitler, and it's my way of connecting with them. My mother may have rejected them, but I have not. Sometime, maybe next summer, I plan to make a trip to Israel because they wanted to go there but never got the chance. If I go there, somehow, they may rest in peace wherever they are. At times I wish you were here to see what I'm seeing and hear what I'm hearing, and at other times I know this is something I have to do for myself, but I still miss you like crazy. Love always, Dancer.
That was great, Fred. Wow, I'm amazed how much history that we can pick up from that, you know. being a first person letter that somebody wrote. Yep, they talked so much about, I don't know if people can hear me or not. My screen is frozen. I'm the only one moving. It's like we have ghosts. Oh, hang on.
I used to hear him talk about things in the war, about things like that. And he and my mom wrote to each other because they were engaged, but they saved their letters to each other, their love letters. And I have the box in my closet, and I will always keep those letters. They're very special to me. And like that letter, my father wrote a memoir about his life in the war and this and that. And it was very much the same of what you were telling me. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
I came in mute. Thank you very much for keeping on, folks. My internet crashed. So I'm back. See, you can just keep going. You don't even need me around. Okay, where are we? I don't think Denise made it. So we will check with her maybe about a future one. And instead we come up to Dave McChesney. Are you ready, Dave? And we need to, there you go.
Yes, I am ready.
Good, good. Go
Good.
for it.
Okay, this is a little excerpt from my third book, my newest book, which hopefully you can see here. Sometimes it kind of washes out because I've got a background set up on things, and any other picture I put up here kind of goes away. But it's an excerpt from Darnesian Pirates, the Third Stone Island Sea Story. And it comes from the end of chapter 12, which I haven't, I'm one of these people that use titles for my chapters, and it's called Reunions. And at this point, on a wintry day, Edward Pierce and his friends journey into the wilderness and arrive at the village of Shastalamy, the Kalish dream chief. Okay, and we'll begin now. As they neared, many children ran out to greet them, waving and shouting greetings in the Kalish language. Pierce had learned a smattering of it before, but was unsure of his abilities. Morgan, on the other hand, had more intensive tutoring and roared back several replies. That delighted the youngsters, who, unlike last time, were fully clothed. With the children came the dogs, which barked, howled, yipped, and occasionally growled amongst themselves. Pierce wondered if they should have brought Junior, who's the dog in the story, but realized it may have added to the difficulties. Perhaps Junior would not have been welcomed by these dogs and would have ended up fighting or worse. He no longer had to drive, as the youngsters, joined by older boys and girls, guided the team. They came to a stop near the largest dwelling in the village, a dome-shaped structure made of saplings lashed together and covered with hides, tree boughs, moss, and here and there, clapboards and shingles. Surprisingly, a brick chimney poked through the upper surfaces. Some of the homes were more in a native fashion, but others were even more influenced by Baltican ways. Excuse me. The doctor found his way to the wagon as they climbed down. Even with just one leg, Morgan jumped, wobbled, and then steadied himself. Pierce ensured the brake was set and climbed down more easily. He assisted Evangeline and then Glenn Lewis, who stood in front of his mother. By unspoken command, the crowd drew back and left a clear space around them. Pierce recognized Shastalamy and Alice as they approached. "You bring coffee, Ed Pierce?" "Father, that can wait. You know Pierce and Morgan, but you must meet Mrs. Pierce." "Father, this is Evangeline." "Evangeline, this is my father, Shastalamy." "How do, Evangeline? Nice meet." He offered his hand. "I've heard so much about you," she replied and offered her hand. "Not all true," he grinned. Then he looked down. "You bring boy?" "Yes, this is my son, Glenn Lewis." "Him welcome too. Him big welcome." Just all of you bent down to the boy who smiled and reached for him. I think each has found a friend, observed Pierce. He watched Morgan scan the crowd, an increasingly worried look on his face. The crowds parted a little more, and a young Kalish woman approached slowly. Morgan's face lit up. Cecilia beamed. As it had done on the visit years before, they greeted each other in the traditional Kalish manner. Again, Morgan's mispronunciations drew good-natured laughs. Everyone smiled at this long dreamed of and heartfelt reunion. But none smiled as much nor shed as many joyous tears as Tom Morgan and Cecilia. Pierce remembered his reunion with Evangeline in December of 1805 and felt a true measure of sorrow that Morgan had to wait until now. She broke free of Morgan's embrace and darted back into the crowd. When she came forward, a young boy, roughly the same age as Glenn Lewis, clung to her hand. Thomas, she said, you have a son.
Oh. Very good, Dave.
That's it.
Very good. Okay, comments, questions? Anybody? You're all semi-muted, so if you want to say something, you'll have to unmute yourself.
What did you say the name of that chapter was, Dave? It should be The Big Surprise.
Reunions?
Oh, I thought maybe it was The Big Surprise.
No. Well, it could have been. Maybe in another edition it will be. I don't know.
Dave, I think you have some very vivid description there, really excellent description that really is cinematic and really brought it to life.
Well, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I sent one of my books in for the Writer's Digest self-published contests. And that was one of the things they said. They said I write in a cinematic style.
Yes. Yes, it's very descriptive, very clear. I got the scene perfect.
Oh, good. And of course, the scene you get may not be what I intended, but that's the way writing goes. That's the neat thing about writing is. So if we got 10 people listening, there's 10 different versions of that story out there now of that scene.
That's the thing about the imagination.
Yeah.
When you watch a film, you're seeing what the editor or the director wants to present. And of course, you can lay things on top. But boy, when you read a book, you have to make the movie up yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So many times the person that plays the role in a movie doesn't look anything like the way you imagine them when you read the book.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I'm afraid the directors have an awful lot to say about that. They tell the actors how they want that scene played. They tell them, unless they're
Oh, yeah.
really big, they don't have much say. So.
Mm.
Well, that's wonderful. I think our next individual is Cindy, and doing poetry, right? Haiku, and yeah, wonderful. Are you ready then? You just muted yourself.
Unmute. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I just started getting back into writing after about a year of hiatus. I retired early last year due to medical reasons, and I've been getting into a lot of meditation and healing. And one of the things that was impressed upon me during the meditation was to start writing again. Well, I love writing. I haven't done it in a couple of years due to all the medical issues I had. And then the last year of teaching was just crazy for me. So I said no more. But anyways, getting back to writing, and the message that I was receiving was start back in poetry. And I'm like, what? I haven't done poetry in years. And these messages were coming in. Try haiku. I said, oh my God, I haven't done haiku since I was in high school. I can't even remember. I know it's short and I got to look this up on Google. So it said, just get back into writing, get into haiku, and it's going to flow from there. Well, I kid you not. I sat down, I came down to the office, started writing. I looked it up to see what the formula was because I had forgotten. And it's 5-7-5. It's 3 lines. And I looked it up because I didn't remember this. There's in 3 lines, your stanza somewhere in there is a cutting word, they call it a punch word called a koreji. It's from Japan. And a kijo, which is a nature or seasonal reference. That is your classic haiku. And I don't remember that part. I just remember the other types of haiku, and those are called, and I don't know, I'm sorry on the pronunciation, sen-ryu. And that's like just a regular haiku with no reference to nature or seasonals or anything like that. So, and then a long time ago, 3 lines started off a longer Japanese poem called a renga. And eventually it broke down and this gentleman turned it into haiku, and he would take those 3 lines and make them into stanza, and they turned into haiku poems. And so I'm like, okay. So I came down to the office and started writing, and things just started to flow. I mean, stuff was coming out like crazy. They're not long because, I mean, you can do 3 lines, right? So let's get back into this. So I started this, and the topic that I chose that I've been studying is about manifestation and remote viewing, moonology, and more of the mystical side on things like I've been doing a lot of studying and reading on that along with my meditation. So the first book that I'm starting on is called The Manifest Haiku. So and I joined the group on Facebook. So a lot of times they'll do these, they'll put them on Facebook and it'll look just like that. So you'll take your lines and you'll put a picture with it. So this one is called Manifest. And it just says, manifest your wish, believe your dreams will come true, and so it will be. That's it. I mean, it's just simple. And it felt really good, you guys. I just started just coming back and just, getting that pencil to paper, getting that going. So that was the first one I wrote. And then the next one, so I decided to start to play around with it, where you can rhyme. Certain ones you can rhyme, and then you can pull words in from the previous stanza, put it, and you can play around with it with any way you want. That's the fun thing about haiku, if you're not doing the proper Japanese form. This one is called The Intuit. Okay. Is it yes or no? This intuition I have, show me what to know. Receive special gifts of intuitive knowledge to share and uplift. It's a gut feeling, strong pull, intuitive sense, the gift for healing. So that was a little longer one, and it had some rhyming in it. And that was fun. It was a challenge. It was getting more of my brain getting back into it. So that felt good. Then another one I wrote was called The Way. And it says, Spirit says, look here, this path is your destiny. Courage, no more fear. Connect to your path, facing in that direction, leave behind the past. Take this direction, transforming brings clarity, change, and correction. And those were, I've got a whole bunch of others, and I'm just sifting through them and reworking and just getting back into it. But I'd like to share with you a poem that I wrote a while back, and I rewrote it and it was reworking. It's called The Keepers, Keepas. And so I grew up a lot in Virginia. We were a military family. And so when we lived in Virginia, when my dad was stationed out at DC, it's considered the South back there, and you pick up a twang. So anytime I'm around a Southerner, my twang will come back. So I wrote this story with the twang. So I hope y'all can understand it, because it's fun, but it was fun writing it. It's called Keepas. And the story setting is about a young boy and an older gentleman. They're at the river, and he's fishing, and the young boy is coming up to him and wants to do some fishing with him. And they're out early in the morning. So he comes up and he goes, okay, hey, mister, is that a true story, or is you pulling my leg? The boy asked the heavy whiskered man fishing on the dock. Sure enough, young fella, her tail is sticking out of the water just over yonder. Go on now. If you don't believe me, go take a look over there for yourself. He reproved the boy while he adjusted the straw hat so to shield the sun off his face. He pointed upstream towards the bridge, and the boy peered over his shoulder in that direction. Well, how come I ain't never heard that story before? He asked the fisherman. Don't reckon I knows what you knows and don't know, son, the fisherman replied, staring down into the deep green water where his line disappeared. His baggy flannel shirt puffed around to his belly. His large shoulders sagged while holding the flimsy pole. His feet dangled over the edge, barely skimming the water. The boy looked back and down into the water, his mind fixated with the story about soldiers, the blood, the marching, the screaming, and the mermaids. He stopped on the mermaids. He envisioned them swimming in the water next to the bridge and singing as the soldiers limped across to the other side, fearful and exhausted. He wondered how many died before they got across the bridge. A brief silence fell between them. The fisherman broke the silence in the quiet morning air. Have you heard the song before, son? No, sir. I don't recall any such song before, the boy answered. I was sure you had, the fisherman continued. He paused and waited while the boy pondered his question. Well, maybe I has just a little bit, but I don't recall, the boy said, and scooted himself just a little bit closer to the old fisherman. The fisherman faintly smiled. I think, he cleared his throat. I think I can remember a bit of it, he added. The boy leaned in closer to listen. Old men in canvas straw and baseball caps with button-down baggy shirts. They shared with us stories about them mermaids some time back. And when we was older, them stories they had grown, they was woven like a net, knotted up and holded what the fishers called a keeper. Their mermaids lived and played under a narrow wooden bridge built before the Civil War. They sung songs to Confederates, teasing, enticing, and chanting them to coax them to their grave. They sung sweet, luring words to bring them to their fate. Glorious men, glory be, where you going? Come to thee. You need a rest, take comfort here. Become our guest, take leave your fear. Walk no further, come taste the water. We're by the girder, it's not much farther. Glorious men, glory be, where you going? Come to thee. They was plowboys, privates, men galore, crusted with their blood, marching and a-moaning to the white chapel down the Maple Line Road. Inside, there was nurses, local gals, and backwoods women. They listened to men wailing while shredding strips of linen. Unlike the wicked mermaids, with their bodies all a-swaying, beyond the bridge is Mermaid's Landing, by the brown old crickety dock, and sticking out of the water is the tail of Mermaid's Rock. You see, a cannonball struck her while she was singing their demise. She tried to plunge back in the water, but death, it broke her dive. She turned to stone because that's what happens to mermaids when they die. Even in the winter, her tail is frozen high. The old fishermen say she's lucky and lots of big fish swim around. And her tail, it makes the water swirl round her body lurching down. A whiskered fisherman told us that if you sang her magical song, the one she sang to all those men, you don't have to wait for very long. The fish, they, like the soldiers, are lured to airy notes that fill the air and water. That's why they bite the hooks. Them hooks, them musical notes, they's waving and a-floating, then you always get a keeper, says a whiskered fisherman. They sat, they watched, they listened. So I had haiku and then there was a ballad. So I'm practicing on both. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody, you can't hear us because everybody's muted, but you can see us. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Any comments or questions? You remember to unmute yourself if you do. You're going to start me now with the accent.
I have a comment. You are a wonderful reader. That just makes it come alive. Certainly enjoyed it.
Thanks, Sandy. That's great. Well,
And I really enjoyed the accent also. That's nice.
Yeah, keeper was keeper. Yeah, without the, yeah, that was great.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's our list of signed up readers. We've got 3 more folks that we might be able to squeeze in here because we have like another 20 minutes if we want to go for it. Whoever might be ready. I don't know. Mark, did you come ready to read if you could? We've got you in order here. Mark, Cafe Rita, and Sandy Mason.
Yeah,
So,
I'm ready.
you ready? Okay, go for it.
Okay, I've been writing children's fiction stories kind of since the whole lockdown started a couple of years ago. And this is the beginning of a short story that I wrote about a month ago. So it's called Below, B-E-L-O-W, Below. Casper wanted to believe that a fantastic fabled kingdom existed under his house. His parents, brother, and sisters didn't know about this. But if the fantastic fabled kingdom did exist, he wasn't sure how to tell them about it. The house didn't have a basement, and Casper only knew that on one side of the house, behind an overgrown bush, he'd find a small, hard to find entrance for under the house. And this had a wire mesh barrier and was used only for crawling under the house to make plumbing repairs. His father told the kids about this unpleasant crawl space. He explained there are spider webs, probably raccoon poop, and rats, which live quietly under the house in the darkness. After this, none of the kids, except Casper, ever thought of opening the crawl space to go wiggling through on their bellies, exploring with a flashlight. That would be a yucky and scary adventure for anyone, even for plumbers. Casper knew better. He didn't let his father's warnings ruin his hopes. Nope. He decided that something special, something unique, and something delightful was available ever so close, right under the floor of the home. He kept this to himself. Now, Casper knew they wouldn't understand, but he wanted them to. He thought, someday perhaps, but how? Under his house, the boy imagined a different, strange, and exciting world of make-believe. Occasionally, he'd place his ear on the wood floor in the living room. Other times, he placed his ear on the carpeted floor in his bedroom. Casper placed his ears everywhere he could and listened carefully. Of course, he did this when no one would catch him. He heard noises such as dragons snoring and making snuffly sounds, noises of a colony of bats screaming out of a black cave, scarecrows and unicorns talking, giants stomping, horse hoofs with knights speeding on royal errands, a huge sea serpent swimming, and pterodactyls crying in the sky with large wings flapping, or a drawbridge of a castle lowering against a dangerous moat with chains straining. He even thought he heard a witch laughing. And with his head on the tile floor of the bathroom, Casper knocked with his knuckles as a sort of, hello, anybody down there? Can you hear me? Experiment. And suddenly the sounds under the floor stopped. He listened carefully. Nothing, only silence. And this worried him. What if I scared them all away and they went to another house? Oh no. And that night, he had a hard time falling asleep. But finally, Casper dreamed. And in the darkness of his room, he noticed a small rug, almost like a doormat. He got out of bed and knelt beside it and moved the little rug away. He could see a rectangular groove cut into the floorboards, a trap door, a metal handle, and a large key slot caught his attention. He slowly put his fingers in the metal loop and pulled up, but his efforts only made a creaking sound. And this worried him tremendously. And he expected that one or both of his parents would open his bedroom door, see what he was doing, and have nothing good to say. Now, Casper quickly dragged the rug back into place, jumped back in his bed, and pretended to be deep asleep. What a dream. When he woke up in the morning, he vividly remembered the trap door. He needed a big key to put into that slot and turn it so he could see what mysteries lay below. Where am I going to find such a key? In a huff, Casper did his chores and went off to school. So I'll stop there. I can't hear. It's like I'm deaf. I can see people clapping and throwing money, and I
I
can't.
know, isn't it something?
The money's not coming through.
No.
I want to find that key. I want to know what's down there.
Yeah, me too.
That's fun.
Thanks.
Great.
Mark, my inner child liked it.
Yes.
Hooray for the inner children.
Yeah. At the moment, I just got done reading James and the Giant Peach. And I'm starting to read The Bridge to Terabithia. They're both really good movies also. And
Yes.
anyways, it's kind of strange with one of Roald Dahl's book, well, James and the Giant Peach, because I have a story which I wrote before I read any of his stuff, where the two parents are gobbled up by a hippopotamus while they're sleeping. And they're swallowed whole, by the way. And then he's got a thing with a rhinoceros that escaped from a zoo and gobbled up James's parents. So it was very peculiar. I had a very similar idea.
Yeah, that's good.
That was good.
Well, thanks. I just wanted to plug. I'm interested in using WordPress for a website, and I'm looking to see if anybody out there is able to help me get that going. I'm unfamiliar with that software. So
I will put that in the newsletter that you're looking for somebody that can help you then, Mark.
unless somebody else has a better web software, different idea.
Yeah, well, there was a whole bunch on that we discussed last month, but we've got a little bit time left. I want to move on to Cafe and let her do her reading. If you're ready.
I'm ready. Thank you, Linda.
Wonderful.
This is part of a book I'm just finishing now. The working title is Listening from the Inside Out. It's conversations I have with God. And this, I'll read a part of this one that's called Hope Pulled Off a Shelf. So it's been a rough morning, I say to the Lord. I can't seem to find my place. God, I'm mad at you. I'm mad. No reason, I just am. I know, he answers. I knew before you did. I keep looking at my hands. They look so old. The hands of an old woman, wrinkled, flabby, full of age spots. They look so old and tired, and I hate to look at them. I lotion them, slowly run my fingers along the veins and stretch out the skin to make it smooth. Then it pops back into Wrinkle City as soon as I lift my finger, showing years of use and abuse. I'm mad. Lord, I read encouragement in a devotional book this morning to praise you and give thanks, but the praise and the thanks are stuck in my throat. They come out in low guttural moans of angst, complaint, and wordless pain. There's my praise. That's the most I can seem to muster today. Truth sounds like that, he says. There was a time when you would just stop what you're feeling and saying and put on the facade you think I expect from you and begin to just say, praise you, thank you, blah, blah, blah. That would lift your spirits, and then you would go on about your activity, casting aside the real stirring that's in your heart. And that's not really praise, not of a true heart. I'd rather hear the groaning. And then what? I ask. So I groan and feel sad and angry, then what? These days I'm a little stumped, a little confused. It used to be that I would just begin to confess these thoughts and feelings of sin and not me and cast it on the Lord and say I'm free of it. But what's that about? I don't think that's what's called for. Is it, Lord? Look deeper, the Lord says. Look into it, like looking into your reflection in a lake. What do you see? I see I'm tired and I feel lost. I see these abused old hands fit me, spotted and wrinkled, with the elasticity of hope sucked out. Where did it go? It went south, as they say. It all went south. The hope you bought was pulled off a shelf, prepackaged. It was the descriptions, the dreams, the mantras, the beliefs about what is good and desirable and what to look forward to in the future. Is that your hope? Nah. You're already seeing now that this package will not satisfy you. True hope, hope that is yours, is born out of pain, out of grief, out of letting life touch you and cut into the most tender flesh of your heart. Hope knows that you do not have to pretend those pains and disappointments don't exist or that they don't matter. It is owning them, feeling them, naming them. If you do not first own them and name them, then you cannot leave them and move away from them. You will carry them with you and they will snuff out hope. You're angry because you've not separated yourself from the experiences and feelings that rob you of hope. You bought your package of hope because it was cheap. It did not require much from you to pull it from the shelf, saying, oh, this will do, this is me. As is so often said in the world, you get what you pay for. That package was a knockoff, not the real thing. So stop, let the groans come and tell you from whence they come. Let them tell you what it is you carry within you that daily cuts away a sliver of hope and disfigures your dreams. Speak it, name it. Lord, it's the not knowing who I am because that person was never allowed to take form. Rather, it constantly morphed into what I thought was expected of me. And now without expectation strong me, I don't know how to perform. I don't know what to do, how I'm to act. I suppose that means I have a clean slate. If that's all there is, then I can just let it be me. Anyway, back to the task at hand, the groanings. They say what I thought was me is no more. What is me will now come forth. It's time to show up and see who I am. With that, he gives me a wink and we smile. That's it.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's weird. We're all clapping, no noise.
Oh my gosh.
Funny.
Wow, Cathay. I think you just wrote my story after retiring in June. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? Look at my hands. I'm so old. I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
my God. And that's exactly how I talk to God.
When I heard you sharing about what you were hearing earlier, I thought, yeah, I know. That's my experience
I
too.
love it. Thank you.
Listen, I am looking for beta readers for that book. So if anyone's interested, contact me.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Thank
make
you.
a quick note of that here. Everyone. Okay, that way I'll have notes for everything for the next newsletter and all that kind of jazz. I'm getting too long in the tooth to keep this all in my head. Let's see, we did have, I think Sandy wanted to read, and then I know Beth is down to possibly read if she can, and then Nancy wanted to read a poem if possible. So Sandy, are you ready to do a reading? All right.
Yep.
Go for it.
I read this with apologies to Beth because she's already read this poem. And this, I muse on odd things sometimes. And so this is tongue in cheek and just for fun. So please understand. This is called Ode to the Eyebrow. Dear eyebrow, you used to be so lush and thick. I thought that you were just the trick, always there, so nice and slick. I plucked and thinned you, tried to train you. You would not cooperate, and now I fear that you decide to disappear. What is it with eyebrows? As men age, their eyebrows get bushy and unruly, wildly going where no eyebrow hairs should go. They angle outward and upward in spectacular manner, while women's eyebrows take a different tack. They simply refuse to grow back. Thinner they become until there's just a single one. That's it.
You
I
you
mean,
need to write a sequel, which I'm very interested in, is where do men's butts go?
Oh,
I think you should write that one.
yeah, you do that one.
I haven't got a clue.
Oh, I loved your rhyming. Your topic is great. That had me laughing. That was perfect. That is so good.
My poems don't always rhyme, but this one does.
This one, it was great. I loved it.
Thank you.
right. Any other comments or any questions about what she wants to do in future with her life?
Are you asking that question?
Oh,
Of
just
me?
wondering if anybody wanted to know. Are you going to write some more like this?
I am. I have a poem that I did called Forest Encounter, and it's about a fairy. And I did the first part of it, and then I thought, maybe I'll make a children's book out of this.
There you go.
So I'm working on the second part, the other part of it. So it's a work in progress.
Well, that's good. Keep it up. And I have to ask, we have about 2 minutes to 8, but we started later than 7. So if folks have to leave, just go ahead and check yourself out. But we do have a couple more people that are happy to read. I'm going to call on Beth next. And you're muted. So if you unmute yourself, Beth, if you feel like reading, go for it.
Sure. I have just a word of advice for Sandy. That is more. Thank you. Now, my poem, I just have one poem to share. It's a Christmas poem based on a memory. I grew up in Seattle and my grandmother is Scandinavian. So that's the backstory. This is called Cross Over the Bridge. Cross over the bridge, the Ballard Bridge, Snooze Junction. That's where the Scandinavians get their lutefisk. Yeah. Those little dark stores with boxes and barrels of dried herring, sea-tack, yulakaka, that soft egg bread rising into your mouth with citron and white sugar icing, plump burnt raisins buried in the crisp top. Yeah. This year we'll have lutefisk, my grandmother says, digging through the dried yellow fish planks in the barrel, as if they were already steaming hot with white gravy, the reward for steeping in lye for 3 days. Then fish jello, only a Scandinavian can eat. Yeah. Not everyone could eat lutefisk, so bowls were filled with koldormas, bright green fried cabbage rolls, and cups of hot glögg. Christmas punch so good it didn't need alcohol, my grandmother always said, her cheeks red, my grandfather smiling as he took the empty bottles of aquavit away. Yeah. Cross over the bridge, the Ballard Bridge, a toll bridge, its metal plates thrumming under the tires. Yeah. Cross over the bridge. Thank you.
That was entertaining. Being part in our region, I really could go along with that, except I love fish, but I don't know about lutefisk. We'll have to,
Just one quick sentence. My sister and I made lutefisk for 16 people and we had platters of it and it went around the table and came back. Nobody took a bite.
oh no.
Fish jello.
Oh, well, it was something they missed out on, I'm sure.
I've had lutefisk in Ballard a couple of times, and one time it was really great, and the other time it was not.
Yeah, I expect it matters how it's cooked and the ingredients, you know, how with the quality of the ingredients and everything. So
Yes.
wonderful. Well, let's see. I think then we also had Nancy wanted to read her poem if we had time. Sure, we've got a few minutes. So why don't you go?
It's just a quick little ditty. It'll take me, I don't have it printed out. I wasn't planning on this, so you will not see me, but you'll hear my voice.
Okay.
I used to be a truck driver, cross-country flatbed, and so it is really in that context. So I will get it in just a second here. Okay, keep on trucking. Pitched roofs and flat roofs are what I view as I sit in my truck among the hills at one of the mills. A scale house sits while loads are weighed to be sure it all fits. Chips loaded, bundles of lumber quoted. In outlying areas beneath a partially clouded sky, ready for purchase, logs are stacked and piled high. Far away, the sound of a tree falling to the ground at the mercy of a lumberjack's axe. Done well and up to code, semis with flatbeds will get the loads. A horn blows while conveyor belts go. Fans whirling, smoke twirling. Everything here seems to be swirling. Work to be done, places to go, more to see, the gears in low. Where to next? Do you know? And that's it.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you did poetry like that.
I'm trying to get back here.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll wait for you.
Yeah, here I am. I don't typically, but I had written that back when I was driving in. And then my daughter pointed it out to me. I'd given it to her just recently, so I improved on the poem just recently and
Wow, nice.
have it tucked in there.
You should do some more. I like Nancy posts on Facebook all the time, and she has these wonderful paintings that she does, and then she'll post on top of them some very encouraging, uplifting, or sort of admonishing sometimes message to folks. And I just really, really enjoy. I get to see most of it. I'm not on Facebook all the time, but when I am there, I get to see it. So
yeah, I think my next step with that is that I will put together a book of a lot of those that I've done, and then I'll see how, what I think of that. Just a personal book, and then see from there whether I want to do any kind of.
I think it definitely is publisher worthy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So obviously I'm not an avid reader as far as my voice is concerned, but I haven't read that poem out loud either. So.
Oh, you did a great job. Everybody did a great job. I'm really impressed. I thought you'd all come on and be going, wait a minute, no, you did a great job. Thank you very much. You made this a fun evening. I don't have to dread this anymore. In the future, we're going to have some more. So now I'm going to be all excited. So I appreciate everybody. You're going to go ahead and unmute yourselves, and you can say last minute chats and whatever. And if you want to read at the next one, which will probably be maybe in March, I'm thinking March or April, then just go ahead and let me know, and then I'll remind you when the time comes that you volunteered.
Thank you. This was fun.
This was very fun. This was good practice for me.
It's
Yeah.
nice to see all of you. and
That's what I was
hear
gonna
your
say before.
opinions.
You'll be able to
Yeah.
see this. I'm gonna put stuff up on YouTube if you don't mind, and I'll send out the link in the
Okay.
newsletter, and you'll be able to go on and hear yourselves and see what you did. I think you might be surprised, some of you. You did a good job, so you know you were probably thinking, "Oh, I can't do this. I can't." You were so brave. I'm proud of you.
You sound so shocked, Linda.
No, there are people, when you don't get to hear them speak publicly, or you don't get to hear them do a presentation, you know, just chatting is one thing, but when they actually do something, it's like, I've not heard this person do this before. I don't know how comfortable they're going to be, and this was wonderful. And I think you're giving a lot of encouragement to a lot of other writers who will want to watch this and see how it went. So thank you so much. I really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Linda.
Yeah. Any
Thanks
other
for having us.
Any ideas for next time? If you could tell me, I can type it in the thing, so I'll capture the chat for you. And I've been saving it all night long, so I think I have the whole thing. And I just took a screenshot of everybody, so I'll know who all was here. And so I can email any of this stuff to you. Okay?
Very good.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda.
Thank you, everyone. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night, you guys. See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Take care. We're all still here, and I'll end it when you make sure nobody wants to chat with me at all.
Well, Linda, I was at the store today.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get some books through.
I'm going to just hang on a second. I've got to stop the
Recording.
recording. Yeah. Okay.